Hi everyone. Today and tomorrow Salesforce Lightning Day 18. So let's see what are we going to learn today. So today we'll quickly go through the previous session and we'll talk about Aura iteration. How can we do the iteration in the Aura? And related to Aura iteration, questions and assignment. Then we will talk about the Lightning dynamic component. So today we are going to jump on to the little bit tricky topic, which is a Lightning dynamic component. And we'll have a questions related to dynamic component. In dynamic component, like how to create a component dynamically. We'll see that what are the different ways we can create a dynamic component. And then we'll talk about the questions assignment. Then we will talk about the creating a multiple components or a nested lightning components, and we'll have a questions assignment related to the topic. And finally, we'll talk about the destroy a component, how to destroy a component, what are the commands that we have to use it in order to destroy the command, and when can we destroy the command or a component. And related to destroy, we'll have a questions and assignment. Then finally, we'll talk about the interview questions. So quickly, what did we learn in previous session? In Lightning previous session, what did we learn about?
Record data.
Post message. Program based we can record data methods.
Record.
Delete record,
by using save.
reload,
Delete record. Reload.
Source data method, toast message,
debugging, lightning message.
delete record, reload record, program based debugging.
Yeah, so in the program based, we have seen the how to delete, how to reload the component. Then we are using the post colon record data. And then we have seen the toast message, how to use the toast message, what are the different toast messages, when to use it. We have seen the commands and how to debug the lightning component. We have seen. So continuation of that, today we are going to see Aura iteration. So as we know that iteration is nothing but it's a collection. That means it's keep on going into the loop till it is satisfied the condition. That's what we have learned in the Apex class. Now, is it same in the Aura iteration in the Aura component? So in Aura, iteration is nothing but it renders a view of a collection of items. There is an attribute. There is an attribute in the component. It holds the collection of items. It holds the collection of elements or a collection of values. So if I wanted to print that collection of values, then we have to use the Aura iteration. So that means it renders a view of the collection of items. So Aura iteration iterates over a collection of items and renders the body of the tag for each item. Let's suppose, let's take an example. Now I have some information here. Let's say I have a list. Okay, Aura attribute is, there is a name, Aura attribute name is list. Now in this, whenever we are declaring the Aura attribute, we have given a value called default equal to some names we have given here. So assume that we have given all our names, right? So it has a more than one value. So let's take Akash, Bharati, Madhu, Mallikarjun. So this is an attribute which is holding the more than one value. That means it's a list of values. it has a list of values. That means it is in JavaScript, it is an array. So there is an array. So this is an array. So array is holding the value of multiple values it is holding. Right? So name is an array here, which is holding the multiple values. Now, if I wanted to print these values, that means take all the array, whatever the array contains, take everything. Now, on the HTML, in Lightning Aura component, we have a HTML component, right? So in that component, I wanted to print the values that it contains. I wanted to print these values line by line. That means first value should come first, and then it should print the second value, and then it should print the third value, whatever the length is there. So it should keep on repeating the values till it finds the end of this value. That means I wanted to print this collection of values. Collection of values are stored in an array, and this collection of values I wanted to print step by step. That means line by line. Now, how much is the length? I don't know. How much is the length? I don't know. So we need not to specify in Aura, we need not to specify a length. When we are using the Aura iteration or Aura iteration. So when we are using Aura iteration, we need not to specify this is the length. Now, till yesterday in the Apex, we were verifying it like and we have given an integer I equal to 0, and then we are doing the condition check here. After that, we are incrementing it. So this is a loop. This is a loop. So in this loop, if this is satisfied, then only the condition will go inside. That means it is going to loop through till it meet the condition here. But whereas in Aura iteration, I need not to specify the condition here. I need not to specify the condition here in the Aura. It will automatically verifies the value. It automatically check the whatever the length of the array is there. That means when I'm giving this value to iteration, when I'm mentioning this value, when I'm passing the value here, when I'm passing the value here name, so that time the Aura iteration is automatically able to identify based on the length of values. So it will check 0, 1, 2, 3. So that means size is 4. So it will automatically take care of the size based on the values. I need not to specify X like this, I less than 10 or I greater than 10 or whatever the condition is there. I need not to specify that here in the Aura. So Aura iteration iterates over the collection of items. When I say collection of items are nothing but each one of them, Akash, Bharati, Madhu, Mallikarjun, whatever the each items are there, it is going to go through the each one of them and renders the body of the tag for each item. That means first print the first one, then go back to the next one. So first condition is it is going to cross verify if I'm passing a array here. I'm passing the array to Aura iteration. So first thing it is going to check what is the length of this array. Okay, this Aura iteration capture the length first. First, it will capture the length. Then, once it is captured, then it is going to go inside. And then, whenever it is going the inside, this Aura iteration has to pass a variable. That means array cannot be passed inside. It has to have a var attribute. It needs to have a var attribute. And whenever we are declaring the Aura iteration, we need to specify var equal to, let's say, name. So this has to be passed. So that means The second condition is going to check what is the var name. Var is nothing but variable. So it is going to check what is the variable name. Then it goes inside this. And inside this, what we will do, we are going to print the value here. We are going to print the value, whatever the value is there. So here we have given a name called names. So within the Aura iteration, we have to give name. So what will happen? This is the third condition. It is going to verify. Okay, variable name is var. Name here, then print the first one. It will print the first one. Again, it will go back to the Aura iteration and check is there a second value. Then it will go here and it will give what is the next value. So first value is printed. That means 0th index is printed. Now it will pass the first. Then it will go and print the first index. Then again it will pass the second index. Then it is going to print the second index. Then our iteration is going to pass the third index. Then it is going to print the third index. So for each item, whatever is mentioned in the collection, it is going to go through the each item and it is going to print the value, and again it renders the body. What are the within the Aura iteration, the entire logic is there, it is going to render that again. If any data changes during the execution of component, let's assume that I have implemented a component. So during the execution of component, in case if there are any changes on the data, then Aura iteration is automatically renders the data. You need not to do anything. You need not to do anything. So for example, I have implemented a component. I have implemented a component using the Aura iteration. So by using that, I have implemented it. Assume that at the back end, let's take an example of games. So I have a games attribute. In this games attribute, I have a certain values which are stored here. Now this is a component which is implemented. Now during the runtime, somebody has changed the game name here. That means before it was here cricket. Before it was here, cricket was there. So somebody changed it to the football. So as soon as somebody changed that data, it is going to reflect the Aura iteration automatically. That means the data is going to automatically update on the UI. You need not to make any changes if there are any data changes are there. Now syntax is Aura iteration. Then whatever the attribute name is there, you need to pass the attribute here. So this is attribute I'm passing here. That means items equal to, I need to pass the games. I need to pass the games here. So item name is games because games is the attribute which we have declared here. Now var equal to, we need to specify a variable. We need to specify a variable. Let's assume that I'm just giving here G. Here entire name is there, games, which is the same as an attribute. Now variable name, I'll give a G. So once this execution is done, within this block, we are going to mention what data do we wanted to print. We wanted to print G value because the variable name here is G. That means it has taken the collection. Aura iteration has taken the collection. Now this collection, it is dividing it to this each row. So right now everything is a single row. Everything is a single row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it is dividing this collection into each one of them. That means by using this variable, it is going to divide. It is going to divide this array to the single value. In the loop, whatever in the loop is there, it is going to print each one by one. That means if I have a multiple values and if I wanted to print a value, each one of the value, then we have to use the aura iteration. Aura iteration. So let's take an example. So let's go ahead. File, new lightning component, LC underscore iteration. Click on submit. Now I'll declare the same attribute, aura colon attribute name equal to, let's take a games, and type equal to,
List.
what type of a list it is?
String list.
Type equal to string. Now let's define the default value here. So let's say default values are cricket, football, tennis. So these are the values which I am assigning to the games array. So that means right now what I did, I declared a list, I declared an array. So which it contains the collection of elements, collection of items. Now I wanted to print this value step by step. Now in order to print that value, so let me use aura iteration, aura colon. And for aura iteration, we have a two attributes. One is the items and second one is a var. One is the items and second one is a var. In items, we need to specify whatever the attribute name is there. We need to take that attribute here. Curly braces, exclamation, games. And then variable name. You can give any variable name. That should be all good. So let me take a game. Now within this block, I'm going to print game. Clear? So I have taken a list here. I have taken a collection of items and I'm using the aura iteration. Now for this aura iteration, I'm printing the each value step by step. Each value step by step. Now just to make here, I'll just put a heading H1. So let's say list of games. Now let me use Lightning application. LA underscore application. Extends equal to, what is that?
Force colon SLD.
SLDS.
Force colon SLDS. C colon. Now, let me preview this. Now it is printing everything in same line. It is printing everything in same line. Let me make it more beautification for that. So what I'll do is I'll use HTML tag called UL. So within this UL, I'll use it as a list. And within this list, I'm going to print this. Right, so it is printing the list of values, cricket, football, tennis. Cricket, football, tennis, it is printing step by step. Now, in the real time, how are we going to use the aura iteration? Just a second. How are we going to use the aura iteration? So in real time, what we are going to do is, okay, this is a component, lightning component. Which is aura. And we have a UI. Let's assume that we have a UI. So in UI, we have an account table. There is an account table. In the account table, I have around more than 30 records, right? I have more than 30 records. So what I need is in this 30 records, I wanted to store all the account names. That means I need a list, right? List of string in this where I'm going to store all the account names. All the account names equal to new list of string. This is in the Apex side. We have already discussed this list. So by using this list, what I can do is I can store all my account names. Whatever in the account we have one of the field called name is there. Right. So all the names I'm going to store it in the list. Now, from this account, I'm storing everything into the account names. Where I'm doing it, this is I'm doing on the Apex. I'm doing on the Apex. So that means on the Apex, I have written some business logic. In that business logic, I have used the list of account names equal to new list of string. Basically, what it contains the all the account names that are there in my org. Now this account names, which I'm going to pass it to the Lightning. What it contains the account names. Example, it will be like this: account names equal to so ABC, comma, Volkswagen, comma, Dell. So these are my account names. These are my account names. So it is going to store all the account names like this. That means I have a list. This list is containing all the account names. Now this account name is going to pass it to the Lightning component. In the Lightning component, we have a something called controller. Let's take a helper. We have not yet discussed the helper. So there is a controller and a helper we have. So assume that helper. So what it does, it is going to pass this data to the Lightning. In the Lightning, what we are going to do, we will take this account names. We will take the account names and we will implement our iteration items equal to, will say that there should be an attribute. Let's assume that attribute name is ACC list, and I'll give var equal to ACC. Var equal to ACC. Now I'm going to end this aura colon iteration. Now in this, I'm going to print ACC. That means whatever here I'm getting it on my custom component. This is my custom component. On my custom component, I have implemented a table custom component. Here I have implemented a table. In this table, only the account names are printed. No other values are there. Only I'm printing the account names. So this is one of the scenario we use it in the Aura iteration. Any questions? Any questions here? Okay, perfect. So let's move on. Question: how to print a collection items in Aura component?
Aura iteration.
Aura iteration. What are the attributes will be there?
Where and
Items and where.
items were.
Items were. And what is the syntax for it?
Aura iteration. Items equals to
Items equal to list name, list variable name, var equal to variable name.
variable.
Item name var.
Inside can print with var name.
Right. So assignment for the Aura iteration. Implement a lightning component with below attribute and print the each value by looping through the array. So create an attribute ages and give a value default equal to some value here. And then print this value step by step by looping through this array. And second assignment is implement a lightning component with below attribute and print the each value by looping through the array. So here we have a attribute called cities, and cities has a values Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Cochin, Delhi, and print this value one by looping through this array. Implement a lightning component with below attribute and print the each value by looping through the array. So now here we have a S object. S object equal to, S object is the attribute. It contains the values, account, contact, lead, opportunity, campaign, product, order, invoice. So these are the values it contains, and print this value step by step.
What about controller? Controller class.
Controller, we are not going to discuss this one, because before we discuss this, we need to understand how to implement the Apex using the list. So when we are discussing that time we will discuss the passing the list to the controller, and from the controller we can take it to the Aura component. Today I just gave a hint why we use it, but before that we need to practice how the Aura iteration is works.
Okay.
Ma'am, in Aura also Apex mandatory, ma'am, because of it is server side only, right? Sometimes we have been used or else.
Right. So in case if I'm doing any logic, okay, you can implement a LDS using the LDS. Actually, let's do that. We have done a lightning LDS program based and form based, which we have implemented, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So another assignment, as we have implemented a form based program based, get the account name from the LDS. All the account names that is exist in your org. Take all the account names. So implement lightning component implement Lightning component to get all account names using LDS. You can take either program based or a form based, it's up to you. Okay, get all the account name and then store these account names into a array or list. Then print the account name print the each account name by looping through the array. This is another assignment. Okay, any questions in this? You can implement using the LDS instead of going to the server call here. Let's move on to the dynamic component. Dynamic component, Lightning dynamic component, which is very important, and we'll get some questions from the Lightning dynamic component during the interview. So what is a dynamic component? So dynamic component is nothing but, let's take a scenario. Now I have a button. Now this button is assume that this button is a welcome button. This button is welcome button. Whenever user click on this button, I wanted to implement a component on fly. Usually what we do, we write a component, we implement a component, right? We write Lightning button and all those examples which we will write, like in the component, in the Lightning Aura component, here I'll write a Lightning card, Lightning colon card. Within this, I'm going to write the Lightning button. Right, these all we are implementing, and after that we'll have a Lightning input. By using these tags, we are implementing it. So this everything is written here. Everything is written here. So everything is written here. Now, why can't you go with the form-based one? We have two types of there. So program-based and form-based. In the form-based, will you able to get it?
In form base also we have used a record that in a swap in order to fetch the details.
Okay.
Record view, record form, record edit. All the three things we have used record ID now. That's what I'm thinking actually.
Okay. Try it. If it doesn't happen, let me know. We'll do it tomorrow.
Okay, Swapna.
Yeah. So coming back to the dynamic component. So dynamic component is we have a multiple tags here. So Lightning card, Lightning button, Lightning input, right? So we have a different things which we are implementing within the Aura component. Now I know that whenever we are implementing whenever user is accessing or whenever they are clicking on the button, what all components should be appearing, we know that. But what I need here is, I wanted to take out this. I wanted to take out this lightning button completely, or let's say that I wanted to take out here these two buttons. Let's have only one button here. Assume that there were two buttons. I wanted to take out the one button from here. One button from here, and I'll keep this aside. Now this button name is welcome button. This button name is welcome button. So whenever I click on this button, and we have another button which is called as, let's say hello. This is another button which has a hello. Or let's take a submit button. This is a submit button. So that is a submit button. On clicking on this button, I wanted to implement this component on fly. So that means as soon as a user click on this button, at the back end, it should start implementing the code automatically. It should start implementing the code automatically and place this code within the HTML. So that whenever the user clicks on a welcome button, there is another button which is going to show me that, which is a submit button. It is going to show me the submit button. Now I'm not writing the submit button in the component. I'm not writing the submit button in the component. In the component, we are not writing the submit button. This submit button has to implement on fly. That means as soon as a user click on this button, there should be a code has to be built automatically using some logic. I need to build this logic on fly and place this logic within the component. Place this logic within the component. So that whenever user click on it, submit button is going to show. And when the user click on a submit button, when user click on a submit button, I want an alert message here. I want an alert message. No, this logic also should be built on fly. This logic also should be built on fly. There is nothing is written for this button and this alert message. Nothing is written in the component. But it has to be built using like there should be on fly, it should be executed. That means it should build the component and place it into the HTML. So that means this is called as a dynamic component. This is called a dynamic component. There is no component which is not written here. We are not writing any component here. The component which we are building it using the JavaScript. That means whatever I'm writing here, I'll take out from this. And this button, lightning button, and whatever the label name, variant, on click of this button, what should happen? Everything we will write it into the JavaScript. That means in the JavaScript, I will write it in the JSON format. I'll write it in the JSON format. So what will happen when user click on this button? When user click on this button, on clicking on this button, there is a logic which is written in the JavaScript. The logic which is written in the JavaScript, by using that JavaScript, whatever the lines of code here is implemented, this code is going to help implementing a component and passing it to the Lightning component. So JavaScript is going to help us implementing a certain components and passing to the component, the lightning component. So it will pass it the component so that this button will appear. And on clicking on this button, the alert is also will appear. So that means dynamic component is nothing but during the runtime, we are implementing the component. We are implementing a component. So dynamic component, creating a component during a runtime by using the JavaScript controller is called dynamic component. By using the JavaScript controller is called dynamic component. Now, dynamic component can be divided into two ways. We can implement a dynamic component in two ways. One is implementing a single component, that means use only one component. That means either use the lightning button or use the lightning input. Only one is possible. Using the JavaScript, you can implement only one component, which is a single component creation. And the next one is a nested or multiple component creation. Nested or multiple component creation. That means you have so many components that you wanted to build it on fly. You wanted to build that component on fly. The entire component you wanted to build it on fly. So that is where we are going to use multiple component or a nested component. So the syntax for the single component creation is $a.create component. Nested multiple component creation is nothing but $a.create components. There is only one letter difference between the single and multiple. Here I am using a $a.create component, and here I am using the $a.create components. If you are using a $a.create components, that means this is for the nested component or this is for the multiple components. If you are using a $a.create component without yes, then that means you can create only single component using the JavaScript. You can implement single component using the JavaScript. Any questions here? We have little more why we need it, but till this point, any questions? So in spring 19, that time we got something new called $a.create component. So when it is released, we used to say this as a lazy component. We used to say this as a lazy component because we are lazy to implement the tags here, which we wanted to implement through the JavaScript. That means on fly, it is going to execute everything, which is very lazy. And the questions are, what is dynamic component in Aura?
Building up of a
Creating a
component.
Creating a component during a runtime by
Using
using
JavaScript.
JavaScript.
Right. Creating a component during a runtime by using the JavaScript controller is called dynamic component. So what are different ways we can implement a dynamic component?
single component
Single
creation,
component creation,
nested or multiple
nested
component creation.
components creation.
Right. So let's see the first one, create component. So in order to implement this logic in JavaScript, so what I'm going to do is, so I will be having a component. That's the anyway we have to create the component here. So I'll be having a component. In this component, I'll be having a button. So you can say any name here, button, which is assume that welcome. Now, whenever we click on this button, what are we going to do? We are going to implement in the JavaScript. That means on click of this button, I'm going to call a JavaScript. On click of that button, I'm going to call a JavaScript. In the JavaScript, I'm going to implement single component. First, we will see a single component implementation, $a dot create component. Right? So what I'm going to do is, this is a create component. Now on click of this, I'm going to call a method, or let's say, yeah, here there is a method which is written on click of this button. There is a method which we are calling here. So in that method, we have a $create.component. What are the attributes that are expected in the create component? What are the attributes which are expected in the create component? So usually when we declare a button, like what all the things we give here, if I declare a HTML in the HTML component, if I declare a lightning button, what are the attributes I'll give?
Variant on click
Label variant and lump.
label.
I'll give a label, and then I'll give a variant, and then on click. So these three I needed in order to implement lightning button. Now this is going to divide it in here. So what I'm going to do is, this lightning button is, I'm going to divide this in pieces. Lightning button, and then I'm going to divide this and this, what are the attributes are there? This is going to take another one. That means I need to know what type of a component that I'm implementing. What type of component that I'm implementing? Am I implementing the button component? Am I implementing the input component? Or am I implementing the lightning card component? Which component I am implementing it? So this $a component needs to know what type of a component it is. What type of component? And then whenever we are mentioning the type of component here, every component has a certain attributes. Every component has certain attributes. So that means if I'm declaring a here component, that means I need to know what are the attributes. What are the attributes? So attributes here, it is going to be the object. That means whatever we are declaring it here, so it will be stored in the JavaScript as a object. So type is a string here. Type is a string. And then the second attribute which I'm going to take is, the second attribute here, it is a attributes. So which is type is object. Object is nothing but everything I'm going to store in the JSON format. Everything I'm going to store it as a JSON format. Now the next one is, once this is executed, once whatever the type attribute which we have declared it, what it does is during the execution of during the execution of the component, it will take the type, it will take the attribute, and it will convert in the this JavaScript is going to, whatever I'm mentioning here separately, type attributes, finally this is going to convert it as like a HTML component, lightning component. It is going to convert it as a lightning component. That means output of this is what I'm going to get it. I'm going to get the output of this equal to lightning :button, and then label equal to, let's say, new button, and then variant. We can use anything. Let's take a destructive. and then on click. So on click, we'll see later. So this is what the output of type and attribute is. Finally at the backend, it is going to build like this. Finally, it is going to build like this. Now, once it is built this, JavaScript needs to know whether it is a successfully implementation is done or not. That means, is the Lightning component tag is built properly or not as per the expected? Did it build the Lightning component and whatever the expected format is there, is it built properly or not? So for that, we need to know, once it is built, we need to know the callback, whether it is a successful or not, whether it is a successful or not. That means I need to have a function for the callback. So build that and tell me whether it is perfectly executed or not, perfectly built or not. That means here I'll be having a certain information in the callback. So in the callback, so basically here it is a callback. So callback, how we will write it? Function. Within the function, we will have a certain attributes. What are those attributes? Once it is built, this component is built, right? It has to pass that component to the function because it has to give the response back to the controller, because we have not yet passed to this HTML component. What are this component is there? So it is not yet passed. It just built this component and it is sitting there. It is just sitting there. It's not yet passed to the component. Now, before passing to the component, we need to tell the controller, once this execution is done, the callback function needs to be executed. The callback function needs to be executed, whether it is a successful implementation or not. So once it is successful or not, to understand that, we have 3 parameters within the function. One is you can give any name here within the function. So let's take a CMP, but it should not be same as whatever on top level you are giving a component, comma, event, comma, helper. The function here, you will have a function here, right? So function, component, comma, event, comma, helper. You will have this function on top. So the name should not be the same as that. So you can give here any name, so which is a component. And then the second parameter is I need to know the status, whether it is a successful or not. If it is a successful, perfect. If it is not, then how can I get the error message? For that, we are going to have another attribute called error message. Another attribute called error message. Another attribute called error message. Now, these 3 parameters is going to tell me that whether this lightning button component is implemented perfectly or not. If it is a successful, then what it does, it will pass the value to the component. It will pass the value to the component. How it is going to pass it? Do I need to declare an attribute here? No. By default, $a.create component, whatever it is doing at the backend, everything it is going to store it into we have something called v.body. No need of declaration. Attribute declaration is not required. Attribute declaration is not required. That means whenever you write this body, that means there is a dynamic component has been implemented in the controller. Whenever you see this curly braces exclamation b.body means there is a dynamic component is implemented in the controller, which is on fly, which is going to create it. On fly, it is going to create it. Then finally, once it is status is successful, it is going to send the response to the HTML, response to the component. So whatever the response is there, it will send it to the component. And whenever user is entering or whenever user is clicking on that first button, it will open up the other button, which is called as a new button. Now let's see that. So create component. So $a.create component, type, which is a string, object, attribute, which is an attribute in the form of object, and then we'll have a callback function. This is our syntax for the create component. Now here type is a string. Basically, which type of component are we going to create using the $a.create component? That means which component is implementing dynamically during the runtime, during the execution of the logic, it is going to implement the component. So example, lightning colon button. And then we have a attributes. So attribute is object. It is basically a map of attributes for the components. We are going to write all our attributes within this object. It's similar like a map. Map is nothing but how you are going to write it. So label, colon, you will say new button, variant, colon, destructive. So you are going to say like this. So this is nothing but a map. So whatever we are writing here, colon, so that means we are doing a map. So this is a map. Label, mapping to the new button. Variant, mapping to the destructive. Like this, we are going to build all the attributes within the object. Within the object. So like this, we are going to implement. If you are giving a component, the attributes also should be related to that component. You cannot write a component lightning input and attribute different attribute. You cannot write it like that, like a component declaring lightning input, but the label attribute declaration is which is related to the button, which is a completely mismatch. So finally, the function callback, you are going to get it as a error message. And the next one is a callback. In the callback, you have a 3 parameters. CMP is nothing but which is holding the type and attribute information. So everything is held in the component. Then you will have a status. What is the output of the execution of this, whether it is successfully implemented that particular type of component or not. And if there are any errors, then we can capture the message, error message using the error message. So these 3 are the parameters for the $a.create component. Now here CMP is nothing but the component that was created. Whatever the type of component is there, what type of component is created. So basically this parameter enables you to do something with the new component, right? So whatever the component is there, which can be added to the CMP component. In case if there is a error during the creation of it, then your CMP will have a null. So if it is successfully executed, that means your CMP equal to, it will have lightning colon button. Lightning colon button. In case if there is any error during the implementation of, then your CMP will be null. Your CMP will be null. Now the next one is a status. Status is basically to know final output, whether the status is successful, incomplete, or error. If it is a successful, everything is perfect. Incomplete, error is nothing but there is some issue. And finally, we have an error message. In case if there are any error, status is error. Then if I wanted to capture the message, then we can use the error message. So by using the error message, we can capture the error. Now, so once it is done, so $a.create component, once everything is perfectly done, so what it will does, it will push the component, what are the component that is implemented here, it will push the component to the v.body. You need not to declare an attribute for the v.body, you can directly use the v.body expression. So these all, everything happens at the backend. So create component is, as I said, it's a lazy loading. That means we are not writing anything on the component. We are implementing everything using the JavaScript. At some point, it was very crazy using this $a create component, but later it is reduced. And why we are going to use the $a create component here? Because if you have a lot of or many Aura if statements, okay, so you can implement this component using the Aura if also. Like you have a component here, you have a component here, and in the component you wanted to show this particular message, right? This is some component, you wanted to show this component only when the Aura if condition is true. Right? If you have a one condition like this or two condition like this, it is fine. We can do it everything in the HTML component, Lightning component. But if you have a many Aura if components, you have many Aura if components. So what will happen? Better, instead of using the lot of Aura if statements or inside the Aura iteration, what you can do is you can transfer the same logic to the $a.create component. Instead of writing a Aura if statement within the Aura iteration, like if you are doing more than 2 times, better pass that what are the component that you are implementing it, pass it to the $a.create component, so that during the execution, it will build that component and then it will show what are the expected output is there. And so, and it shows that depending on the condition, that means when to load that component, you can decide it. So based on that condition, developer can finally implement the markup for that particular component. So what will happen if I use the $a.create component? It will basically reduce the number of component and improve the performance. So what do I mean by improving the performance here? Now, when I declare here Lightning button, Lightning input, right? In component, if I say Lightning button, Lightning input, Lightning card, everything I am declaring it here, right? So what is going to happen? And also I'm going to say here Aura if, and within the Aura if, again I'm writing the another Lightning card, right? And here we have a button and we have a input values. So many are there. We are writing this everything in the Aura if. So when we declare like this, what will happen? There is a space is allocated, right? A memory space is allocated. That means whether you are using it or not, this value is true or not. Whether if is true, whether this condition is true or not, I'll be allocating that space in the memory. That means there is some space will be allocated. Whether it is a true or false, the space will be allocated here. For this thing, when I use a dynamic component space will not be occupied. Whatever you are writing in the component, only for that a space or memory will be allocated. Now during the runtime, based on the condition, it is going to extend. It is going to extend the space or extend the memory. That means we are not wasting the memory here. And the second thing is that because we are not wasting the space and everything, definitely it is going to improve the performance because we are implementing the component in the JavaScript. So it will reduce the number of components and it will improve the performance, because if you write 100 lines, 200 lines of code in the component, definitely it will take us each one of them step by step. It is going to execute it, and then everything it has to store somewhere, right? So that is going to reduce it. Now, let's go ahead and see one requirement using the dynamic component. Any questions before I implement? Okay. So let's go ahead and implement this. File, new Lightning component. LC underscore dynamic underscore component. Let's click on submit. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, here I'm going to declare a button, right? I am just going to declare one button here. Aura colon button, sorry, lightning colon button. So let's say label equal to, click here. And then on click, I'm going to call a function handle create button. So let's take here create button. Create button. Now that's all I'm writing here. And let me include this component in the application. Colon. Refresh. So here there is a button. Let me add a card so that it will look good. So I'm going to add a card here, lightning colon card, title equal to, let's say that dynamic component button class equal to, I'm going to add some space here. So for that, I'm going to go to the Lightning design system. In the Lightning design system, in order to add the space, we have padding. So the left side, which I wanted to add, so let me take this. Control X. Now click on refresh. Now, perfect. So dynamic component, here I have a create button. So on click of this create button, I need a component should be built on fly and should show another component here, right? Maybe below this create component. Now let's go ahead and implement that handle create button. In the handle create button, if we have to implement a dynamic component, what is the syntax?
$A dot create component.
$A dot create component.
$A dot create component. Now, within this, how many parameters do we have?
String type string attribute callback function.
Type, attributes, callback function. Let's take a function here. Perfect. So these are the three. Now here type, which one we are implementing? Lightning button we are implementing, right? So lightning
Button.
colon button. Now the second thing, attributes. What are the attributes that I need?
Label variant.
Okay.
On
In order to implement the attribute, I need to use the object. So within this object, I need a label. Let's take the new button. And then I'm doing the map here. Variant. Let's take some variant here.
Yes.
What is this Salesforce one? If I
Brand.
brand,
Brand are neutral.
brand. Now, what else we need? On click. Now, what to write on click? We'll take it up later. Now, this is done. Now, the next one is I need a function. I need function. In the function, what are the attributes that we have?
Component.
Any variable
Component
here?
Component.
message, error message.
Even
Status and message, error message.
Error message.
Error message. Now, these three are there. Now, within this, we'll have to open up the kernel braces. Now, here I need to check whether the status is success or not. So for that, I'm going to use the condition, if condition status equal to, if it is a success, this is the logic, else another logic. Now, what do I need to do if it is a success? I need to pass the component to the here. Right? I need to pass the component. In order to pass the component here, which one we have to use it?
Handle
Oracle ID.
We have to use the expression called v.body. No, I need to push that everything into this body. Whatever this logic is implemented, I need to push that to this body. So what I'll do is first I'll get the value, get the component completely. Component dot get v dot body. Once I get the one, now this component, whatever CMP is there, right? What it will hold? It will hold the type and attribute. Whatever the component is implemented, everything is its hold here. Now, if I wanted to push the new component, which is built on fly to the body, then I have to use this CMP. I have to use this CMP. From this CMP, I need to push the component to this body. So in order to do that, so what I have to do is, I have stored this, I got the, by using the get, I'm storing everything into B. Now what I'll do, B dot push. What I'm going to push it, I'm going to push this CMP. You can take anything there. And then once I push the value, then I'm going to set back the body. Comma B. Perfect, let's save. Clear till this point?
So one question.
Yeah.
In line number 14, we did not declare any attribute, right? Body. I know default it will come once creating. So here we are getting, right? Do we get any error or exception?
Can you repeat your question again?
Actually, in CMP, we are having the component, right?
Hmm.
So component will be stored in CMP.
Hmm.
In 14, we are doing get, right? From the component, CYMP. So do we get any error?
So in the JavaScript, in Lightning Aura component, by default, everything it is going to store it as a null. Okay, so if you do not have anything, that means there is some value which is called null. So this we have to take it, because if I wanted to push it to something here, to the B or some variable, so first get everything from here.
Okay.
Get everything from here, then push this, what are the component is there, push it to this what are this variable which we have declared it. And then from there again set back to here. So what will happen, whatever the get body contains the attributes, we are not going to lose it.
Okay.
If I say like this, if I say var B equal to, let's say this is array, and then I'm pushing all the component to this B, and then what will happen, I'm setting the B to body. Whatever the body is containing the default attributes, it is going to replace with a B. We do not want to replace with a B. So here I have a data which is there. Okay, here the data is something, assume that here I have it, body which contains equal to null, and some attributes are there. And some attributes are there. Now, if I say here B, right now this has a different attributes here B. B has a different attributes. B dot push, what will happen? It will take only the lightning button. Now, what are these attributes are there? What happens? It is going to delete what are the existing one is there. And then I'm setting back only the lightning button. I'm setting back only the lightning button here. But Salesforce has implemented this body. We have not implemented this body. There is no attribute declaration also. Salesforce has implemented a body. So when they are implemented, certain declaration they have done it to hold the certain values. That means there should be some default attributes are there.
Okay.
So which we should not lose that. If I lose it, it will not work.
Okay. Got it.
So let's go ahead and refresh. Now click on create button. So it is displaying the new button. Right? So new button, we have not returned anything there. So clicked on this button and there is a new button is implemented. Now again, on click of this new button, I want another button to be, another button should be displayed. On click of this, I want another button should be displayed. Now, first time when I click on this create button, it is displaying the new button. If I click on a new button, there should be another button here. It should come. So you can implement as many as you want. Now, on click of this button, there should be another button should be implemented, right? So usually if I wanted to go to the controller function from the component, we use c.handle create button. Now I need another component here. I need a on click of this button. If I'm writing here button, on click of this, I'm calling here method, right? Now similarly, on click of this button, what are the new button is there? On click of this, I wanted to call another controller I wanted to call, the method I wanted to call. There is some method here. Let's assume that here I have a method handle. Is this new button? I have another method here. I have another method here. So if I would have been writing the lightning button here, I would have directly called here on click equal to c dot curly braces exclamation c dot handle new button. I would have written here. Now, how to write the same thing here? If I write curly braces exclamation c dot handle new button, will it work? It will not work. If I write the same thing here, it will not work. Now, if I have to call from the JavaScript, from create component, then I need to use something component dot get reference. Component dot get reference. Get reference. Get reference is nothing but take the reference of this handle. So go to this and what are the action is happening yet. Now show that information. Now on click of this button, new button, I wanted to show another button, right? So if I wanted to show another button, similarly, I have to implement $a dot create component. So I have three things here. Why it is coming here? Something wrong. Eighth line.
In the handle button, new button, there are two down.
So component 27th line.
Here, madam, two.
Okay, that's the reason it is going like that. Fine. So $a dot create component. So we have a three attributes type, attributes, function. In the function, I can take any name. So let's take a new button, comma status, comma error message. And within this, if status equal to, if it is a success, then do this, else error. Now type which I'm going to implement is another lightning colon button. What are the attributes?
Label, brand, variant. Sorry, label, variant, on click.
Label, Let's keep here clear button. Variant equal to, let's keep destructive on click. Now we'll see later in the function success. Then I'm going to take var let's take a b2 equal to component dot get. Now here I'm again taking the existing one. Existing one has this button, right? I'm taking that existing one, b2, and then I'm pushing it. When I push it, it is nothing but a concatenating. When I push it, it will exist, it will take the old one as well as the new one. New button, b2 dot push. And finally, component dot get, component dot set, v dot body, comma, b2. Okay, so we need to give a comma here, otherwise it will not accept. Perfect. If it is a else, then I wanted to show the console.log error message. Perfect. So first time when I click on the button, this gets executed. On click on the second button, which is a new button, it will go to the handle new button, and it is going to show another button, clear button. C underscore dynamic component. Did I lose? Okay. Now let's refresh. Click on create button. New button is created. Click on new button. It did not go. Why? What is the problem here?
You missed on click, ma'am. 33, I think.
That doesn't will keep. I'm clicking on this button. It should go to the handle new button. In the handle new button. Okay, so let's take a alert message here. Alert. Hello. This is new button. Now, handle new button does not require any event, does not require any helper. Let's save this. Refresh. Create button. Alert button is coming up, but there is something wrong with the function. Lightning button. Okay, now it will come. A create button. On clicking on this new button, alert message I am showing it. Click on OK. Now we have a clear button. So if I click on a clear button, again the another alert message should come. So what we can do, we can implement another method. Now this is handle clear. If I have to call this, what is the command that I need to use it here? Component dot. What is the method that I need to use?
Component dot reference.
Dot get reference. Here C dot handle button. So let's refresh. Click on create button, new button is created, click on new button, alert and another button, click on clear button. This is clear button. So what is happening here? How the execution is happening? So first, by default in the component, we have only one button, which is create button. Only one button is the create button. On click of this create button, what happened? It is redirected to the handle create button. It redirected to the handle create button. And in the handle create button, we are creating here new button. And the function, if it is a success, then we are pushing it to the body. So as soon as we push to the body, then it is displaying this new button. Displaying the new button. On click of this new button, which logic is getting executed? This logic is getting executed. On clicking of this button, this logic component dot get reference, then it is calling another method. It is calling another method. So when it called another method, what is happening in the another method? Another method is, it is implementing this clear button. It is implementing the clear button. Now, once it is successful, we are pushing to the clear button to body. Clear button, we are pushing to the body. So we can see here the another button. Now on click of this clear button, which one is getting executed? This component dot get reference C handle clear button. In the handle clear button, we are just showing the alert message. So whenever we click on this, it is just going to display an alert message. Clear? Any questions? Okay. So, questions? How do you implement lazy loading in Lightning component in Salesforce? How do you implement the lazy loading? Sorry? How do we implement lazy loading?
Callback. Component status error message.
Okay, which one we call a lazy loading? Which one we call lazy loading? Which one we call a lazy loading?
Create a dot create component.
$a dot create component.
So how do you implement a lazy loading in Lightning component?
$a dot create component.
Syntax for single component creation during the runtime.
$a dot create component.
$a dot create component. No,
Inside that $a dot create component, then
String type, object attributes, function.
Type attribute function.
type attributes, callback function. Okay, assignment. On clicking on button 1, implement an input field. That means you have a button. This button 1 you have to implement on the HTML. You have to implement on the HTML component. So on clicking on this, you need to implement a dynamic component in the JavaScript, which is an input field. This is on JavaScript. Right? So whenever user is entering, that means once this is done, whenever the user click on the button 1, then the input field is going to display here. The input field is going to display here. So as soon as the user type here, as soon as user types something, which is a on change attribute. So whenever the user type here, we need an alert message saying that test message. As soon as the user type anything in the input field, there should be an alert message should be displayed. Any questions? Is everybody clear about the dynamic component?
I didn't get properly. Ma'am.
Okay, how about others?
With practice only, I think.
Understandable, but need to more practice, I think.
Okay. How about others?
That means this is completely referencing. That means it is completely dependent on one component to another component.
Yes. Now you guys tell me here, when we implement a Lightning component, okay, here we have an Aura component. I know this is a bit difficult, tricky one, which is a complex one also. So we have a Aura component. Now, so far, what we are writing in the Aura component here? So for what we are writing in the aura component?
We will
Button.
create some buttons.
Lightning
On
bolts,
click, we will
buttons.
implement some functions. Design,
So we are writing the
lightning card,
Card button.
button. So assume that what is the label name we should give here? Assume that I'm implementing a button. What is the label name?
Save,
Save.
move,
Save. And then on click of this, we need to call a function here, which is a controller function. C dot
Handle save.
handle.
and
save.
is
So this is what we are writing in the
lightning.
Method.
lightning component. Assume that there is another button which is says here cancel.
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 Handle cancel.
And assume that there is another one which we have a lightning. Okay, for now, let's take a two button. This is we are implementing in the lightning component. Now what I'm saying is, I wanted to take out the second button. This button I wanted to take out from the lightning component. I don't want to write this. I don't want to write this logic at all from the lightning component. So whatever we have here, this should be taken out from the my component, because there might be possible in real-time scenario, it is possible that there is a lot of code is written. Now I wanted to take out that and keep it somewhere like this. Now, if I do not write the cancel button, what is the other option that I need? I need a cancel button. The requirement says that it should have a save button, cancel button. Requirement says that save button, cancel button. Assume that this is instead of cancel button, maybe save and next. Okay. So on clicking on the save button, I should show the cancel button. If I do not write on the lightning component in bundle, what are the different options we have? One of the bundle, one of them is component. The other one which we have is
Controller helper.
Helper.
controller, helper,
Helper.
right? Designer, style, re-render. Right? These all we have it. But what is the right place right now? Archana. So what is the right place right now? So it is a JavaScript controller. Now in the JavaScript controller, if I'm not implementing in here, I need to implement in the JavaScript. If I need to implement in the JavaScript, I cannot write this logic here. I cannot write the same logic in the JavaScript because JavaScript controller does not accept the HTML code. The JavaScript controller does not accept the HTML code. So I need to find a way to build this component in the JavaScript. If I have to find a way, means I need to know that there should be some existing, if Salesforce is providing anything for me. If I wanted to implement this component in the JavaScript, or can I write like this? If I write like this, which is having a tag, so does the tags will be, what are the less than, greater than tags are there? Does it supported in the JavaScript? It's not supported. So that's the reason later on the research, Salesforce has given us some command which is called $a.create component. $a.create component. They have given this. They have given $a.create component. So when they have given this $a dot create component, now I can use this $a dot create component. But in the $a dot create component, can I write the same logic whatever I used to write it in the component? Can I write that in the here in the $a dot create component? I cannot write like that. It doesn't accept writing the exactly same. So what Salesforce did is, instead of writing the complete tag, because JavaScript does not accept the tag, so what we do is we will divide that HTML tag to the JSON structure. So what HTML is decided, what Salesforce is decided is, there is a HTML tag which we wanted to implement through the JavaScript. So let's decode this. Let's decode. So decode in a sense, whatever we are writing in the HTML tag, like a greater than, less than, lightning colon button, same thing, we are going to build it in the JSON format. That means in the HTML, we have a less than, greater than. And within this, we are going to write entire component. Whereas in the JSON, we have to build everything in the curly braces. So first thing they have done is that dividing this part into JSON. What is the best way to divide it? So first they have decided is the best way to divide is, this is every lightning component has a certain component. Now I cannot write entire thing in the JSON structure. I cannot write entire thing in the JSON structure. So first what they divided is, the first thing is here type. And then we have a certain attributes. And these attributes seems like a equal to some value, B equal to some value, C equal to some value. That means it is similar like a map. So usually how we do is like a equal to some value here, B equal to some another value 1, C equal to value 2. Similar like this, we have in the each type of component, each component has certain attributes, and that attributes, there is a value is assigned to that attribute. Value is assigned to that attribute. So that's the reason what they have done is, let's go ahead and use the array, which is going to store the values in the form of map. So that means I'm going to use the mapping here, label equal to cancel, and which I'm going to store it in the object. Convert that everything into map. On click equal to or colon component dot get reference. So this everything is going to divided into this. That means the second one which I'm going to have is attributes, which is in the form of object. Now, what will happen here as soon as a Salesforce see this information, as soon as it sees the $a dot create component at the backend. Backend means nothing but Salesforce. So whenever I'm executing this, the back of this $a dot component, there is a certain logic implemented by the Salesforce. So what Salesforce does, first it will take the type. From the $a dot create component, it will take what is the type. Then it is going to take what is the attribute. what are the attributes it has. So what it does, it will combine the type and attributes, and then after combining it, that means first it will take lightning colon button. So lightning colon button, and then after that we have a attributes label equal to, it will take cancel. It is Salesforce is going to convert this cancel, and then it will take the on click equal to curly braces. No, this is the first step it does. Salesforce does, this is the first step. First, take all the information from the $A dot component. In the second step, what it does, it is going to add the HTML tags greater than, less than. Within this greater than, less than, it is going to put the values that are coming from $A dot component. So it will add this. So finally, we are going to get the whatever is needed for us, we are going to get that. So it is going to add close end, open tag, close tag will be added. Now, once it is implemented, this is Salesforce does it. Once it is implemented, then what will happen? It will send back the response to the, what are the callback function we have. So the third one is callback function. So in the callback function, we'll have some attribute here, status, comma, error message. So when the callback happens, so Salesforce work is done there. Here Salesforce work is done. Now they are sending the result, the response back to us. So we are sending the request here, $A dot create component, whenever it is executing it, we are sending a request to the Salesforce. That means with all the information, whatever is there, we are sending that information. Then once the Salesforce execute their logic, then they are sending the response back. What are the outcome is their outcome of, what are the type attribute based on that, what are the response output is there, it is going to send back to the this function. When it sends back to this function, what it does in the callback function, what are the first name is there, it is going to store the response in the first parameter. What are the response is there? The response is going to store it into the first response, first parameter. The response is going to store it into the first parameter. And then the status is going to store it into the status, and then error message is going to store it into the error message. So this response has what is the component and what is the status, what is the error message. Response contains everything. So it will divide that response, store it into the each one of them. And using these attributes, we can filter out. Clear?
Yes, Swapna.
How about others? Vaibhav, Annapurna, Nagamani, Ram Gopal.
Yes, sir. Concept is clear. Logic, we need some practice.
One thing I have doubt. Like here we are using like a handle save, same
Your voice, I cannot hear your voice. Shailaja, I cannot hear you. You are talking, but I cannot hear you. Sorry, I lost. Shailaja, you are talking something?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, we are using methods. Two methods we are using in controller, right, ma'am? For save method and cancel method. So normally we are using like that way only, right, ma'am? So here also we are using so much of code, and there also we are using code, and based on the requirement we have to implement this, or else what in which situation we have to use this one.
Yeah, if there is a lot of load on your component, that means you are using multiple aura, if multiple aura iteration, or if there is a performance, if you wanted to improve the lightning performance. So sometimes what happens is few applications, like one of the project that I have worked on is, so that entire application we have implemented using the lightning aura component. So it was a long back. So we have not used any of the Salesforce admin or any of those, because they want everything a lightning custom component. So from the starting of the execution till the end of the execution, everything they have to go through the custom component. So during that time, what happens is whenever they went to the at certain place, like there is a certain life cycle stage is there. So after going to the certain stage, they were facing a lot of performance issues, because there are so many components that we have written for them. As per they also requested to, they want the component to be implemented. So as per their request, we have implemented the lightning component. So what happened, because the component, so many components that we have implemented, in every page at least 5 to 6 custom components. So after a certain time, when they are moving to the certain stage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages are there. So after reaching the third stage, they were facing the performance issue or memory issue. The issue was which is occurring. So what we have done is we have shifted our code to the JavaScript. What are the component level, the component level, the tags, whatever is there, everything we have shifted to the JavaScript. That means at least when the component is loading, that time it will not have a load on the component. At least it can load the component. Once it is loaded the component, based on the certain actions, it can take that. Right? So that is the one of the scenario which we have faced it.
Okay, ma'am.
But now it
So
is very less we are using it. That is also based on the requirement. So somebody is going to tell you in the company that we have to use the dynamic component in order to build this. Somebody is nothing but architect or a technical architect.
So I'm having one question.